Hey there, it's Linda, and I'm back with another Project Life process video in my 2022 Project Life album. This is the week of March 21st through 27th, and what I have for this week are quite a few photos. I have some 4x6 ones, and then I printed some small ones because I have an idea for this week I'm going to share with you in a moment, and I have this square one. I do have an insert to go in this week. I'm not going to really work on it. I just wanted to kind of show you. So this was the week of the Oscars. So I have some things that I put in here. I have these two, I have two ballots that we filled out, and then I have our tracking of all of the movies that we saw. I think I'm just gonna slip this one in here. And this is a layout I did about my promotion that I got, which is actually for the following week. So I actually might put these two back to back in an insert during this week and put these two back to back in the next week. So that's just, I wanted to kind of give you a little bit there. I saved a couple of pieces of ephemera. We went to see a Broadway play at our local theater in Proctor's, called Proctor's, and so I'm thinking I'm going to use this, and then I got this as a snack from Target, and they were delicious, and I just saved the packaging to use. So what I decided I'm going to do for this week is play with the Hexagon quarterly scrapbook kit from Ali Edwards. So I think a couple of weeks ago I worked with the rainbow quarterly scrapbook kit in my Project Life album, and I absolutely loved it. I got these quarterly scrapbook kits last year, and I barely touched them. And I'm going to try to work through crushing these kits. And for each of them, I'm going to do a week in my Project Life. I am currently working still through that rainbow scrapbook kit, but I wanted to kind of switch gears temporarily and dig into this one for Project Life. Then I'll come back to it for my other projects. So what I decided to do is print a lot of these photos small because I'm going to use these wood veneer hexagons here as frames for my photos on some of these 3x4 pockets. So I didn't actually print any 3x4 photos. Instead, I'm going to use these across the spread like this. And then I'm going to use these two as journaling prompts for these two to be journaling cards. And that's kind of how I'm going to use that. So I do have, there's also these embellishments here, these which are gorgeous, but I think I'm going to save these for a traditional layout. And this one I'm probably not going to use. And then I'm going to just kind of go through the papers here and figure out which ones. There's the 6x8 papers. There's these embellishments, which I'm sure I'll use some of those, the fabric embellishments, and then there's the 12x12 papers. So I'm going to go ahead and put you on fast forward. I'm going to go through the papers and kind of figure out what works for Project Life versus what I want to save for my traditional layouts. Then I'll go through and crop out my photos and start putting my spread together. So I started by going through all of my papers from this kit. Some of these papers in the quarterly scrapbook kits do not lend themselves well to Project Life because they are large patterns that really need to be larger than a 4x6 pocket. So I just went through and kind of sorted the papers by the ones that could be used in Project Life. Then I'm going to trim down my photos and go ahead and do what I normally do, which is try to figure out what is going to go into each pocket before I put anything together. I just want to apologize for the sun shining in through my window. I actually kind of enjoy it while I'm crafting, but I know it creates kind of a glare when I'm filming. So I did kind of stop and start this video a few times as I tried to catch the sun when it was behind a cloud or not just as bright. So that will go away in a little bit. After I've picked all of my photos, I'm going through all of the papers that I put aside to figure out what I want to use for each pocket. So what I decided to do is use two of the 12x12 papers to create 3x4 background cards for those hexagon shapes. And I just kind of went around reorganizing the hexagons to balance out the patterns and sizes in a way that just made sense for me. And it probably wasn't necessary to spend that much time doing it, but it was kind of fun and I like how it worked out. And then I'm just going to go ahead and adhere these photos behind the hexagons and trim them out. So I do have just a few small photos, different things that I printed from this week that weren't necessarily great photos because they are going to be so small, but it was just a fun way to include those photos across the spread. When I was first working on this, I thought maybe I would add a little bit of journaling or notes by the side of them, but I really liked how they looked by themselves with no additional embellishments. So I do end up leaving them that way. And this is going to be in those 6 pockets across the spread. So I have 4 of them that have photos in them. And the other 2, I'm going to include pieces of ephemera. So one of them is going to be that packaging that I saved from Target. You see I'm working on that right here. And the other one is going to be the playbill from the play we went to. Now, these hexagons are pretty small, so you can't actually read the words through it. It's going to cut it off, but I still really like how it came out, and I feel like it shows enough of the card that you, or of the image, that you can still kind of get an idea of what that packaging is for. For the last one, I did tear the cover off this playbill. I do usually save these playbills, but I don't put them in my albums because they're too bulky. I tend to save them. I have a basket or a Ziploc, not really Ziploc, but a big bag for each year for bulkier ephemera that doesn't make it into my album. But this one, I just decided to cut the cover off, and it's not going to end up going in that bag. I just tossed the rest because the cover was thrown off. So now I'm going to go through and adhere these hexagons down. I'm just staggering them on the different cards so that they kind of bounce across the across the spread. And this one had kind of a weird backing because it had food in it, so I needed to use red line tape. The rolling adhesive just wasn't really working with it. So I just pulled out the red line tape because that's better for different types of surfaces besides paper. And then I was just kind of messing around there trying to figure out the best placement for each of these. Going through and adding these photos and ephemera in the hexagon shapes really took the most time on this spread, but I really do like how it came out. It makes such a statement across the page, and it's so fun when I do something like this on a Project Life spread that really ties the whole page together. I do have an insert in this week, like I pointed out at the beginning of the video, which is something to keep in mind when you are doing some sort of element like this that ties across the spread, because it is kind of broken up when you have that insert in there, but it is definitely still something that I'm really happy with. And it's a smaller insert so you can see the pattern that goes across the spread. So next, what I decided to do for these last 3 cards was pull out, actually those 2 cards, I pulled out some white cardstock and just cropped it down to 3x4 to be bases for those journaling cards. And then I'm going to go ahead and start prepping each pocket one at a time here. So for the title card, I used that pretty hexagon paper, which was one of the 6x8 papers, and I saved the rest of it to use on a different project. And I just stamped the dates on there and added one of the wood veneer pieces. I did end up using all of the wood veneer pieces on this page, which I'm really happy when I do that and use up all of an embellishment, because then I'm not having that one odd piece lingering in my stash that ends up sitting there forever. So for these 2 journaling cards, I decided to do a similar treatment where I added a strip of that pattern paper that was from the kit. It was an inch wide strip, one at the top of the card and one at the bottom. And then I'm going to use those hexagons as kind of a title for them. It doesn't really match with the journaling, but it was still kind of a fun way to create my own journaling cards. And then I'm just doing my journaling. One of these was about our busy Saturday. We had a lot going on. We went out and ran errands, and we went shopping, and then we went to that show the Broadway show. We went out to dinner. So I'm just journaling about that whole day. And even though it was Saturday towards the end of the week, it's going to end up on the left-hand side of my spread, because the other large journaling or 3x4 journaling card is going to tell the story of the Oscars, which happened on Sunday. and some of the movies that we watched this week. So we annually try to watch as many of the Oscar-nominated movies as we can. And so what I decided to do in this spread was tell the story of kind of that overview of what we try to do and how we didn't really get to that many this year. I also pointed out the ones that we watched during this week, and then, of course, the Oscar ceremony itself. Finally, I have this additional journaling card here, which is a 4x6. It's a pattern paper that's from the kit. It's kind of hard to see on the video because it's a very light pattern, but it's really pretty in person. And I did end up adding one of those plastic hexagon shapes on it. I really like those. I wanted to save them for another project, but I really like the way it looked, and there's still enough of them in the kit that I'm going to have plenty to do other projects with. And then I'm just using this card to do my bullet point journaling of other little random stories from the week. Some of these bullet points do relate to some of the photos that are on the hexagon cards, but other ones are just stories that don't necessarily even have a photo to go with them, and just things that I wanted to make note of this week. You can also see in the top right corner there, I didn't really talk about it, but I did create a photo, a 3-photo card there that was done digitally in Photoshop Elements. And I do that from time to time. I have some photo templates that I've created myself that I use over and over again when I want to add multiple photos into the same pocket. So that was something that my cat had done, and I had a series of photos that went together. So I just added them together in Photoshop Elements and added a little journaling on it before I printed it out. And then I don't actually end up doing anything to that card because it's already done by the time I have it printed. So I wanted to add some other embellishments to the 4x6 cards, and I decided to add these large stickers from my stash. I believe they are from Paper Person. And you can see I pulled the backing from a stamp set there because when you're doing a lot of stickers like that, it's hard to kind of center it on the page. So what I do is I stick them on the edge of that stamp backer. And then once I have all of the words written out, I just press it onto my photo, and that way I can line it up exactly where I want it to be. I didn't do it for the word yum because there were just 3 stickers, so it was easy to kind of eyeball it. Then I have that 4x4 photo right there of my craft room. During this week, I shared a craft room tour here on my YouTube. And so I am journaling about that on this little card here. If you haven't seen that video yet, I will add a little eye tag up in the corner so that you can go check it out. Then I decided I wanted to add some embellishment clusters. So I went back to the kit, and there are these fabric hexagons. And so I decided to add it onto 3 of the photos. And I really just kind of liked having repeated embellishment clusters. So what I'm doing is I'm coming up with 3 elements I'm going to include together. So I have the fabric hexagons, I have those chipboard hexagons that came in the kit, and then I went over to my stash and found some white word phrase stickers so I could add one to each of these little clusters. And I called it good. I'm not totally in love with how these clusters came out. I think maybe they would have benefited from something a little bit more like a tiny attacher staple or something, but I didn't really think about it at the time, so I just kind of left it. And then, like I said, here I'm journaling about my craft room tour and my YouTube channel. I think that is pretty much all I'm going to do on this spread. It's really very hexagon heavy. I tried to stick almost entirely to the kit. I did pull out those word phrase stickers and those alpha stickers from my stash, but otherwise I pulled pretty much everything from the hexagon kit. I did add that additional chipboard piece right there just to have a little something extra because there was a lot of white space and that one was just coming off. So I'm just adhering everything down, but that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video.